The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council stretched high into the artificial sky of Space Station Alpha, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of 1,000 distant stars. Inside, representatives of the galaxy's most powerful species gathered for what would become the most important meeting in recent history. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a laser blade. At the center of the circular chamber, High Commander Beast stood tall, his metallic armor gleaming under the bright lights. His species, the Iron Guards, had never lost a war in 10,000 years. But today, his voice trembled as he delivered the news. "The Void Swarm has consumed another 3 systems," he announced, his words echoing through the silent chamber. "The warrior fleet of the Iron Guards has failed to stop them." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the assembly. The Iron Guards were known across the galaxy for their advanced combat technology and fearless fighting spirit. If they couldn't stop this threat, who could? Ambassador Light, a being of pure energy contained within a floating orb, moved forward. "Our psychic barriers proved useless as well. The swarm simply ate through them." The admission brought more worried whispers from the gathered representatives. One by one, the mightiest civilizations in the galaxy reported their failures. The Rock Crushers, with their planet-splitting weapons, had barely scratched the swarm. The Star Shapers, who could manipulate solar energy, watched helplessly as their weapons were absorbed. Even the dreaded War Masters, with their biological weapons, found their attacks meaningless against the endless darkness of the Void Swarm. "Show us the latest footage," ordered Council Leader Thunder, his massive form towering over the central display platform. The hologram sprang to life, showing a terrible scene. The beautiful green planet, much like Earth, spun peacefully in space. Then, like a cloud of living darkness, the Void Swarm appeared. It wasn't just ships or creatures. It was as if space itself had come alive with hunger. Within minutes, the planet's surface turned gray, then black, then nothing. The planet crumbled like ash in the wind. 3 billion lives, Beast said quietly, gone in less than an hour. The council chamber erupted in arguments. Some demanded more weapons. Others suggested abandoning the outer systems to protect their core worlds. A few even proposed trying to communicate with the swarm, though previous attempts had failed. In the midst of the chaos, a small figure stepped forward. Ambassador Walker from Earth, dressed in a simple blue uniform, had been sitting quietly in the back. Humans were still new to the council, admitted only 50 years ago. Most species saw them as backward, primitive, and most of all, cowardly. "If I may speak." Walker's voice was calm, but firm. Several representatives laughed. What could the humans possibly offer? Sneered War Master Blood. "Will you show us how to run away more effectively?" Walker didn't rise to the taunt. Instead, he walked to the central platform and pressed a few buttons on his datapad. A new hologram appeared, showing Earth's solar system. "You mock us for being cowards," he said, "because we build our ships with multiple escape pods, because we maintain evacuation plans for every colony, because we refuse to fight battles we can't win." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But tell me, how many of your people survived the swarm's attacks?" The silence that followed was deafening. "We humans have something you all seem to lack," Walker continued. "We plan for failure. We expect the worst. And most importantly, we know when to run and how to survive while doing it." Beast stepped forward, his armor clanking. "You suggest we retreat? Like cowards?" "I suggest we live to fight another day," Walker replied. "You can't defeat an enemy you don't understand, and you can't understand an enemy if you're dead." Council Leader Thunder raised his massive hand for silence. For the first time in the meeting, he looked thoughtful rather than angry. "Speak then, human," Thunder rumbled. "Tell us what you propose." Walker nodded, pressing another button on his pad. A new hologram appeared, showing Earth's defense networks, evacuation protocols, and survival strategies. As the other representatives watched, some with skepticism, others with growing interest. None of them realized they were witnessing the beginning of a change that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what true courage meant. The humans were about to teach the galaxy's mightiest warriors a lesson about survival, and it would start with learning how to run away. Captain James Walker stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Survivor, watching the stars through the reinforced view screen. The ship's name wasn't meant to be impressive or scary. It was simply what humans did best: survive. Message from Earth Defense Command. Captain, Lieutenant Parker announced from her station. They're requesting an immediate status update on our evacuation preparations. Walker nodded, remembering the council meeting from 3 days ago. After his presentation, Earth had been tasked with something no other species wanted to do: creating an evacuation plan for the entire sector. The mighty warriors of the galaxy couldn't stomach the idea of running away. "Show me the latest numbers," Walker ordered, turning to the main display screen. The screen lit up with lists and diagrams. The Survivor wasn't a warship. It was something the other species found ridiculous: a rescue vessel. While alien ships carried massive weapons and minimal life support, the Survivor had escape pods for 3 times its crew capacity, backup systems for its backup systems, and enough emergency supplies to support thousands of refugees. "Sir," Commander Reed spoke up from his station, "the alien representatives are here for the inspection." Walker straightened his uniform. "Send them in." The bridge door slid open, revealing 3 figures. War Master Blood stomped in first, his red armor making him look like a walking weapon. Behind him came Beast of the Iron Guards, still uncomfortable with being on a ship designed for retreat. Last came Ambassador Light, floating silently in their energy sphere. "This is your mighty vessel." Blood sneered, looking around the bridge. "Where are the weapon arrays?" "The combat stations." Walker walked over to a simple control panel. "Let me show you something." He pressed a button, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the bridge. "This is what makes us different." The display showed the Survivor's internal layout. Highlighted in blue were the emergency routes, escape pod locations, and safety stations. Red marks indicated backup power systems, and green showed the emergency supply storage. "Notice how every section has at least 3 escape routes," Walker explained. "Every crew member can reach an escape pod within 30 seconds. We have enough emergency rations to feed 10,000 people for 6 months." Beast made a dismissive sound. "And this is supposed to impress us? Where is your fighting spirit?" Walker smiled patiently. "Computer, show simulation Alpha 7. The hologram changed, showing a ship under attack. As the hull breached in multiple places, the crew executed an organized evacuation. Within minutes, the escape pods launched in a precise pattern, protecting each other as they retreated. "We don't train our crews to die gloriously in battle," Walker said. "We train them to save as many lives as possible. Every crew member knows exactly what to do in 200 different emergency scenarios." Light moved forward, their energy sphere pulsing with interest. "Your species puts much thought into running away." "We put much thought into staying alive," Walker corrected. "Which is why we're also the best at getting others to safety." The ship's intercom suddenly crackled to life. "Captain, emergency transmission from Colony Beta 9. The Void Swarm has been detected at the edge of their system." Walker turned to his alien guests. "Would you like to see how cowards save lives?" Without waiting for an answer, he snapped into action. "All hands to emergency stations. Set course for Beta 9. Begin evacuation protocol briefing. Reed, contact the colony and start their preparation sequence. Parker, alert all nearby Earth ships to converge on our position." The bridge erupted into efficient activity. There was no shouting, no chaos, just the smooth operation of a crew trained for exactly this scenario. "This is madness," Blood growled. "You're heading toward the swarm." "Yes," Walker replied calmly, sitting in his command chair, "but not to fight it. We're going to get those people out before it arrives. That's what cowards do. We save lives while warriors throw theirs away." As the survivor jumped to faster than light speed, the alien representatives watched in silence. They were about to witness firsthand why humans, with all their careful planning and readiness to retreat, might be exactly what the galaxy needed. The ship's engines hummed steadily as they raced toward Colony Beta 9, carrying their cargo of hope in the form of escape pods, emergency supplies, and a crew that knew every possible way to run away and survive. Colony Beta 9 came into view as the survivor dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The planet's blue-green surface still looked peaceful, but the ship's sensors told a different story. The void swarm was approaching from the outer system, a dark cloud that consumed everything in its path. "Time until swarm arrival?" Walker asked, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. 47 minutes, Captain," Parker replied, her fingers dancing over her console. "Colony population is 23,000. They've already begun their evacuation procedures." The alien representatives stood at the back of the bridge, watching. Walker could feel their judgment, but he didn't care. There were lives to save. "Status of the emergency fleet?" he asked. Commander Reed looked up from his station. 3 more Earth ships have arrived. The Protection, the Guardian, and the Safe Haven. All evacuation vessels. War Master Blood stepped forward, his armor clanking. 4 ships against the Void Swarm. This is suicide. Walker shook his head. "We're not here to fight." Reed, begin Operation Shell Game. The 4 Earth ships moved into position around the colony. Unlike the sleek warships of other species, these vessels were bulky, with large holds and multiple docking ports. They looked ugly, but they were built for a purpose. First wave of colony ships lifting off, Parker announced. 15 vessels, carrying 2,000 colonists each. On the main screen, small ships rose from the planet's surface. They weren't meant for long-distance travel, just enough to reach the Earth vessels waiting in orbit. "Incoming void tendrils," Reed shouted, 3 light minutes out and accelerating. Walker pressed a button on his chair. "All ships, begin defense pattern Delta. Release the drones." Hundreds of small, unmanned vehicles launched from the Earth ships. They weren't weapons. They were decoys, designed to confuse and distract. "What trickery is this?" Beast demanded, watching the drones spread out in a complex pattern. "We learned early that the swarm chases movement," Walker explained, not taking his eyes off the tactical display. "So we give it lots of targets to follow." The first wave of colony ships docked with the Earth vessels. Immediately, crews began helping people board in an orderly fashion, following procedures they had practiced countless times. "Swarm changing course," Parker reported. "They're pursuing the outer drone ring." Light's energy sphere pulsed with understanding. "You're not just running away. You're controlling how the enemy moves." Walker nodded. "The best retreat is one where you choose the direction." Second wave of colony ships. Launch now. More vessels rose from the surface as the void swarm chased the decoys. The Earth ships' holds began to fill with refugees, each person assigned a specific place, each family given emergency supplies and clear instructions. "Swarm has destroyed the outer drone ring," Reed announced. 32 minutes until they reached the planet. "Launch the second drone wave," Walker ordered. "Begin primary evacuation sequence." The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency. There was no panic, no desperate heroics, just the smooth operation of a plan designed and refined through countless drills. "This is impressive," Beast admitted reluctantly, watching as another group of refugees was safely taken aboard. "Survival isn't glamorous," Walker replied, "but it works." The minutes ticked by as more colonists were evacuated. The void swarm destroyed wave after wave of drones, but each destruction bought precious time. The Earth ships' holds filled with people, supplies, and hope. "Final colony ships launching," Parker reported. 22,847 colonists evacuated. "We have to leave the heavy equipment behind." Walker nodded. "Equipment can be replaced. Lives cannot. All ships, prepare for emergency jump on my mark." The void swarm finally broke through the last drone screen, its dark tendrils reaching for the Earth vessels. But the ships were ready. "Jump," Walker commanded. In a flash of light, the 4 Earth ships vanished, carrying their precious cargo of survivors. Behind them, the void swarm consumed an empty colony, finding only abandoned buildings and machinery. As they traveled through faster-than-light space, War Master Blood approached Walker. "You saved them all," he said, his voice mixed with disbelief and respect. Without firing a single shot, Walker finally allowed himself a small smile. "Sometimes, War Master, the greatest victory isn't in standing your ground. It's in making sure everyone lives to fight another day." The Survivor continued through space, its holds full of saved lives. Proof that courage came in many forms, and that running away, when done right, could be the bravest action of all. 3 days after the Beta 9 evacuation, the bridge of the Survivor was unusually quiet. Lieutenant Parker hadn't moved from her station for hours, her eyes fixed on the data screens showing recordings of the void swarm's movements. "Lieutenant, you should get some rest," Walker said, approaching her station with a cup of coffee, a human drink that the alien representatives had refused to try. "Captain, I think I see something," Parker replied, not looking away from her screens. "Every time we run, they chase. But it's not random. Look at this." Walker leaned in, studying the replay of their last 3 encounters with the swarm. The alien representatives, who had remained aboard to observe human evacuation techniques, gathered around as well. "Show me," Walker said, setting down his coffee. Parker pointed to the screen. "Watch the drone patterns. When we scatter them randomly, the swarm splits up to chase them. But when we move them in certain formations," she pressed a few buttons, showing different rescue operations side by side. War Master Blood crossed his arms. "What are we supposed to see in this cowardly running?" "There?" Commander Reed suddenly exclaimed, moving closer. "The swarm moves like water flowing downhill. It always takes the path of least resistance to its target." Parker nodded eagerly. "Exactly. And look at the pursuit angles. They're almost mathematical. The swarm doesn't just chase. It follows specific rules. Rules we might be able to use." Walker straightened up, his mind racing with possibilities. "How many evacuation recordings do we have?" 17 successful operations so far," Reed answered, "plus the data shared by other Earth ships. Put them all through the computer. Calculate every movement pattern, every response from the swarm. I want to know if this holds true across all encounters." The bridge came alive with activity. Even the alien representatives watched with growing interest as pattern after pattern emerged on the screens. "It's like they're programmed," Parker muttered, typing rapidly. "They're not just mindless destroyers. They follow strict behavioral laws." Ambassador Light's energy sphere pulsed with curiosity. "The warrior races have been fighting the swarm for months. Why did they not see this?" "Because they were too busy trying to kill it," Walker replied. "When you're focused on attacking, you miss things. Sometimes you have to run away to see the bigger picture." Beast moved closer to the screens, his metallic armor reflecting the data displays. "These patterns, they could be used to predict the swarm's movements." "Better than that," Parker said, pulling up a new simulation. "We might be able to guide them. Look what happens when we arrange our drone patterns like this." The simulation showed the drones moving in a specific formation. The simulated swarm followed exactly as Parker had predicted, flowing into a predetermined path. "We could lead them into a trap," Reed suggested, excitement creeping into his voice. War Master Blood slammed his fist on a nearby console. "Impossible. The mighty warriors of the galaxy could not defeat the swarm in direct combat, and you think you can trick it with running away?" Walker turned to face him. "That's exactly what I think, because while you were all trying to prove your bravery, we were watching, learning, understanding. That's what humans do. We observe, we analyze, and we survive." "The Council must hear of this," Light said, their sphere glowing brighter. but they will not like the solution. Because it involves retreat, Walker asked. Sometimes the greatest victory requires swallowing your pride. Parker suddenly straightened in her chair. Captain, emergency signal from Colony Gamma 12. The swarm has been detected in their system. Walker looked at the alien representatives. Would you like to help us test these patterns? See if we're right. Beast and Blood exchanged looks. Even they couldn't deny the logic of what they'd seen. Very well, Beast said reluctantly. Show us how these patterns work. Walker nodded to his crew. Set course for Gamma 12. This time, we're not just running away. We're running with purpose. As the survivor prepared for another rescue mission, the mood on the bridge had changed. They were no longer just evacuating colonies. They were gathering data, testing theories, and perhaps finding a way to defeat humanity's greatest enemy yet. The cowards who ran away might have just discovered the key to saving the galaxy, all because they weren't too proud to retreat. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council looked very different from the one held just weeks ago. Gone was the proud posturing of the warrior races. Instead, many seats stood empty, their representatives lost to failed battles against the Void Swarm. Walker stood at the central platform, his simple blue uniform a stark contrast to the elaborate armor and clothing of the alien leaders. Behind him, a massive display showed the latest statistics. In the past 3 weeks, he announced, his voice steady, human evacuation ships have saved over 2 million civilians from 12 different colonies. Our survival rate is 97%. Meanwhile, the warrior fleets have lost 40% of their ships and crews in failed attacks. Council leader Thunder's massive form leaned forward. And you believe your pattern discovery is accurate? We've tested it in 15 separate encounters, Walker replied. The swarm's behavior is consistent. They follow predictable rules when pursuing targets. We can use this. War Master Blood, who had witnessed the pattern discovery aboard the Survivor, stepped forward. His usual arrogance was gone, replaced by a grim understanding. I have seen it myself, he admitted. The humans' cowardly running has revealed something we missed in our brave charges. From her station on the Survivor, which orbited the Council station, Lieutenant Parker continued feeding data to Walker's presentation. The display showed simulation after simulation of the swarm's movements, each one following the patterns they had discovered. The Rock Crushers lost their home system yesterday, Ambassador Light reported, their energy sphere dimmed with sadness. They refused to retreat. Every warrior, every civilian, gone. Walker nodded solemnly. Pride is killing us. The swarm doesn't care about bravery or honor. It only cares about consuming. We need to stop fighting on its terms. You propose we all run away? A new warrior race representative asked, disgusted. Like humans. I propose we live, Walker countered. The warrior fleet of the Iron Guards is down to their last battle group. The Star Shapers have lost half their worlds. How many more need to die before you realize that survival itself is a victory? Commander Reed's voice came through Walker's communicator. Captain, we're detecting swarm activity in 3 new systems, all populated. Walker looked at the Council. Right now, there are millions of civilians in those systems. We can evacuate them, or we can watch them die. Choose. The Council chamber erupted in debate. But this time, something was different. The representatives of races who had already lost worlds to the swarm were nodding. They had seen enough death. The humans' evacuation ships, Beast spoke up. They have room for people of all species. We designed our rescue protocols to work for everyone, Walker confirmed. We've been preparing for this since we first learned about the swarm. While others built bigger weapons, we built bigger lifeboats. Council Leader Thunder raised his hand for silence. Show us your evacuation plans. Walker pressed a button, and the display changed to show the human fleet's rescue protocols. Simple, practical plans filled the screen. Emergency supply calculations, evacuation route planning, survival equipment adapted for different species. This is what humanity does best, Walker explained. We plan for the worst. We prepare to run away. And because of that, we survive. Now we can help you survive too. One by one, the council members began to nod. Even the warrior races couldn't deny the numbers. Human ships were saving lives while their mighty warships were being destroyed. The Star Shapers will cooperate with human evacuation efforts, their representative announced. The Iron Guards will provide escort for rescue operations, Beast added reluctantly. More representatives joined in, swallowing their pride in the face of extinction. Walker felt no satisfaction in their surrender to reality. Only relief that more lives would be saved. Captain, Parker's voice came through again. The survivor is ready for the next rescue mission. Walker looked at the council one last time. You've spent centuries calling humans cowards. Now those cowards are offering you a chance to save your people. What's more important, your pride or their lives? The council chamber fell silent as the truth sank in. Sometimes, the bravest thing a warrior could do was admit they were wrong. The galaxy was changing, and survival would mean learning to run away, just like the humans had always done. The command center of Space Station Alpha buzzed with activity as representatives from every surviving spacefaring race gathered around a massive holographic display. At its center stood Captain Walker, with Lieutenant Parker and Commander Reed at his side. The display showed the movements of the Void Swarm across hundreds of star systems. The pattern is undeniable, Parker explained, highlighting the swarm's movement paths with glowing lines. They don't just chase, they flow, like water following the path of least resistance. War Master Blood, his red armor now scratched from recent evacuations, pointed to a particular movement pattern. Here, they split their forces to chase multiple targets. Exactly, Reed nodded. But look what happens when the targets move in specific formations. He pressed a button, showing a recording from their latest rescue mission. The assembled aliens watched as a fleet of human rescue ships, protected by Iron Guard escorts, used drone formations to split the swarm into smaller groups. Each group followed predictable paths, allowing the rescue ships to safely evacuate an entire mining colony. We've run 10,000 simulations, Parker continued. The swarm always follows these rules. Always. Beast stepped forward, his metallic armor reflecting the holographic light. You believe we can use this to trap them? Walker touched the display, zooming out to show a larger section of the galaxy. We're not just running away anymore. Every retreat has been a test, gathering data on how they move and react. Now we know enough to set a trap. Ambassador Light's energy sphere pulsed with interest. What kind of trap could work against something that consumes entire worlds? Walker pressed another button, and the display changed to show a new star system. The Hollow Point system. 3 stars, no planets, and something unique, a massive field of gravitational anomalies. A ship graveyard. Thunder rumbled from his position at the head of the command center. Thousands of vessels lost there over the centuries. Exactly, Walker smiled. The perfect place for cowards to run and hide. The swarm won't be able to resist chasing us there. The display zoomed in on the gravitational anomaly field. Complex calculations and movement predictions filled the air around it. You want to lead the swarm into a natural trap? Blood asked, beginning to understand. Parker stepped forward. Those gravitational anomalies create zones where faster-than-light travel is impossible. If we can lead the swarm there, they'll be trapped, Reed finished, unable to pursue or escape. The same gravity wells that destroy ships could tear the swarm apart. The assembled representatives murmured among themselves. It was a plan that involved running away, something many of them were still struggling to accept, but they couldn't deny the logic. The risk is enormous, Beast said. The fleet would have to move in perfect formation to avoid the anomalies ourselves. That's why we've been practicing, Walker replied. Every evacuation, every retreat. We've been training for this moment, teaching your crews how to run away properly. Light moved closer to the display. The timing would have to be perfect. One mistake. "We've mapped every gravitational eddy," Parker assured them. "Created safe corridors through the field. We know exactly where to run." "And you trust your calculations?" Funder asked. "You would bet the fate of the galaxy on your ability to run away." Walker looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each representative. "That's what humans do. We plan our escapes. We calculate our retreats. We make sure we survive. Now we're asking you to trust our coordinates one last time." The room fell silent as the galaxy's greatest warriors considered the plan. It went against everything they believed in, using retreat as a weapon, turning their own flight into a trap. Finally, Beast spoke. "The Iron Guards will follow your lead, human. You have proven that sometimes wisdom lies in knowing when to run." One by one, the other representatives agreed. Even the proudest warriors had seen enough death to know that victory sometimes required swallowing their pride. "Prepare your ships," Walker ordered. "We're going to teach the Void Swarm that following fleeing prey isn't always wise. Sometimes, the ones running away are leading you exactly where they want you to go." As the command center erupted into activity, Walker looked at the display of the Hollow Point system. The humans' greatest strength, their mastery of running away, was about to become the galaxy's salvation. The combined fleet of human rescue ships and alien warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Hollow Point system. Through the survivor's view screen, Walker could see the 3 suns burning in the distance, their light distorted by the countless gravitational anomalies that filled the space between them. "Void Swarm detected," Parker announced from her station. "Multiple contact points, exactly as predicted. They're following our trail." Walker nodded. The fleet had left an irresistible path for the swarm to follow, using all the knowledge they had gained from their careful retreats. "All ships, battle formation," he ordered. The words felt strange coming from a human captain. "Remember your training. Today we run away one last time." The fleet spread out in a precise pattern. Human rescue ships in the center, protected by Iron Guard cruisers. Star Shaper vessels glowed with stored solar energy, while Rock Crusher ships took up defensive positions. "The swarm is accelerating," Reed reported. "They're taking the bait." Walker opened a channel to the fleet. "This is what we've prepared for. Every retreat, every evacuation. They were all practiced for this moment. Trust in your training. Trust in running away." The Void Swarm appeared on their sensors, a massive cloud of darkness larger than any they'd seen before. It had combined its forces to chase this tempting target, exactly as they'd hoped. "Begin Phase 1, Walker commanded. "Launch drones." Thousands of drone ships launched from the human vessels, moving in carefully planned patterns. The swarm reacted instantly, splitting and flowing just as their simulations had predicted. "They're following the drone paths," Parker confirmed. "Moving into the first gravity zone now." On the tactical display, Walker watched as the swarm pursued their drones deeper into the system. The real challenge was about to begin. "All ships, commence strategic withdrawal," he ordered. "Pattern Delta 7. The fleet began to move backward, maintaining their formation perfectly. Warriors who had once charged headlong into battle now exercised precise control, following human retreat protocols to the letter. "The swarm is splitting exactly as calculated," Reed announced. "They're trying to surround us." Walker allowed himself a small smile. "Let them try. Begin Phase 2. The fleet's formation shifted. Ships that appeared to be falling back were actually moving into carefully chosen positions. Each gravitational anomaly in the system had been mapped, studied, and incorporated into their plan. "Swarm elements entering the primary gravity well cluster," Parker reported. 30 seconds to critical mass. "All ships, full power to engines," Walker commanded. "Final retreat pattern, on my mark." The Void Swarm surged forward, eager to consume this apparently fleeing prey. It didn't notice how the fleet's retreat had boxed it in, using the gravitational anomalies like walls in a maze. 10 seconds. Reed called out. Walker took a deep breath. "Mark." The entire fleet executed a perfectly synchronized maneuver. Ships twisted and turned through pre-plotted safe corridors, a dance of retreat practiced over countless simulations. The swarm tried to follow and found itself trapped. The gravitational forces it had ignored in its pursuit suddenly caught hold. Dark tendrils were stretched and torn as conflicting gravitational fields pulled them apart. "Swarm integrity failing," Parker announced, excitement creeping into her voice. "The gravity wells are breaking them down." Through the view screen, Walker watched as the mighty Void Swarm, terror of the galaxy, was torn apart by the very forces it had ignored in its blind pursuit. The careful planning, the precise calculations, the practiced retreats, all had led to this moment. "By the stars," Beast's voice came over the comm. "The cowards have won." Walker shook his head. "Not cowards. Survivors. And today, we all survived together." The bridge crew watched in silence as the last remnants of the swarm were destroyed, ripped apart by gravitational forces they hadn't respected. Forces that humans, with their cautious nature, had carefully studied and mapped. Hours later, as the fleet regrouped at the system's edge, Council Leader Thunder's voice boomed across all channels. "Let it be known across the galaxy," he declared. "Today we learned that true strength lies not in blind courage, but in wisdom. The humans, whom we once mocked as cowards, have taught us the greatest lesson of all. Sometimes, victory comes not from standing your ground, but from knowing exactly when and how to run away." The survivor turned toward home, leading a fleet that had learned to value survival over pride. They had saved the galaxy not through mighty weapons or brave charges, but through careful planning, precise execution, and the wisdom to retreat when necessary. The cowards had become the heroes, and the galaxy would never be the same.